The world just changed and no one saw it coming. Leaders across Europe, Canada, the UK, and Australia have struck at the heart of American power. They didn't argue. They didn't negotiate. They imposed sweeping sanctions on the United States' own president. And, inner circle, the kind of moves once reserved for rival regimes, not allies. This isn't a story about trade wars or tariff disputes. This is about trust collapsing. This is about a global alliance saying, we can no longer call America our partner. And yes, that includes Donald Trump. When the announcements dropped in Brussels, London, Ottawa, and Canberra, the message was chillingly synchronized. Assets frozen, travel banned, financial transactions blocked, institutions under Allied rule told, no more deals until this is resolved. It wasn't just shocking, it was historic. Allies that once stood shoulder to shoulder with the US are now openly treating its leadership as a rogue actor. There are whispers now across diplomatic corridors, financial markets, and intelligence agencies that the unthinkable has already started. And if you think this is just about Trump and the US, think again. This could shift the balance of power across the world. For decades, the West believed in a simple truth. America leads, allies follow. Not because they are forced, but because they trust. NATO stood unshaken. Defense pacts remained ironclad. Intelligence shared across secure channels. Democracies bonded by shared values and mutual respect. But trust is fragile, and after years of volatility, controversial policies, public outbursts, and whispered accusations, Allied governments began asking quietly whether that foundation was still strong. When one by one media outlets began publishing leaked payments, suspicious foreign transfers, and internal intelligence memos, the alarm bells started to ring. What began as whispered concerns soon turned into closed-door meetings, emergency briefings, and unspoken agreements that something had to be done before catastrophe struck. Because this isn't just about politics, it's about security. It's about whether information handed over in confidence, intelligence shared on the premise of mutual respect, ends up leaked, sold, or used to destabilize the very alliances meant to protect democratic order. When the sanctions hit, markets panicked. The dollar wavered, investors scrambled, gold shot up, shares plunged, pension funds froze, bankers scrambled to assess which assets belonged to the sanctions circle. Some properties tied to the Trump entity network suddenly became liabilities, at least in friendly nations. This ripple effect threatened ordinary people too, from homeowners relying on mortgages from European banks to multinational businesses with supply chains crossing allied countries. Nobody was safe, because when the hammer drops on the top, the shockwaves reach the bottom. And the message from Allied capitals was clear. We treat corruption like we treat authoritarianism, because for them it was no longer about allies or enemies. It was about protecting a world order built on trust, democratic rule, and shared responsibility. But the deeper consequences run far beyond bank accounts and balance sheets. Intelligence sharing, the backbone of modern security coordination, is already fraying. Allies are reportedly locking down sensitive channels. Files once freely exchanged now sit behind firewalls. Operations once coordinated across continents are now being reassessed. Military cooperation, joint operations under alliances like NATO or the multilateral security pacts are suddenly uncertain. Regional stability that once relied on shared trust might now be jeopardized. Because if you can't trust your oldest ally, what can you trust? Geopolitical analysts whisper of new alliances forming, nations hedging their bets, diversifying partners, seeking new ties in Asia or elsewhere. The familiar world order grown over 70 years may be shifting quietly, but irrevocably. Now imagine the world a year from now. Imagine a global map where old alliances are fractured. Imagine diplomatic relations governed less by shared values and more by fear of betrayal. Imagine a world where economic deals and military pacts shift overnight depending on who's in power. That future is no longer hypothetical, it's unfolding right before our eyes. And the question we have to ask, what kind of world do we want to live in after this storm? Because when allies sanction America, the nation that for decades defined global leadership, they aren't just punishing one leader. They're sending a signal to every power broker across the world. Trust has a price, and when that trust is broken, consequences can ripple far and wide. There's so much more to unravel: how this changes the balance between East and West, what economic upheaval is coming, whether global institutions can survive this shock, and most importantly, what America's future looks like. Because make no mistake, this isn't just a headline. This could be the moment the global order pivots in a direction no one predicted. Stay tuned. But the real fallout is just beginning. In capitals from London to Ottawa, from Brussels to Canberra, nervous advisors are rerunning contingency plans. Every handshake, every treaty, every joint exercise is being questioned. Banks are scrutinizing documents that once passed without thought. Real estate valuations are being rechecked. Business deals are being paused. The world watches unsettled, far beyond the elites being punished by sanctions. Ordinary people are feeling the tremors. Supply chains that span continents are stalling. Cross-border trade agreements are stalling, and confidence in dollar-denominated contracts is falling. A single tweet can now trigger exchange rate swings in distant markets. Governments are quietly telling investors, diversify or risk being caught off guard. Meanwhile, intelligence analysts say this is a turning point. Channels that once transmitted satellite photographs, intercepted communications, and covert files between allies are being locked down. Sources anticipate delays in operations, fewer coordinated raids, and lower trust scores for American involvement. Now that faith is wavering, even countries long considered loyal partners are quietly opening dialogues with emerging powers. In Asia, the Middle East, and Africa, strategic pivoting, once a last resort, is becoming standard play. And while some governments deny any formal shift, the informal conversations tell a different story. Old loyalties are being re-examined, old alliances recast, and new alignments considered. For viewers watching this unfold, the question becomes, what comes next? Will the United States respond with defiance, digging in for a geopolitical showdown? Or will it seek to rebuild bridges, apologize publicly, and attempt damage control? Both paths carry risks. Defiance risks isolation and economic fallout. Diplomacy may require humiliating concessions, a blow to American prestige. Either way, the global chessboard is being reshaped before our eyes. In boardrooms from Frankfurt to Singapore, business leaders are already pricing in potential for further disruptions. Contracts tied to American companies are being reviewed. Bankers are reassessing exposure. Shareholders are demanding clarity. Some American firms are quietly moving offices overseas. Others are diversifying supply chains for them. This isn't politics, it's survival strategy. And if trust in American leadership continues to erode, the corporate world may follow. On the streets, people who once saw the US dollar as a safe haven are nervous. Citizens in emerging markets, migrants whose remittances rely on dollar-based systems, retirees with dollar-linked pensions, all feel peril as trust shifts. Alternative currencies, cryptocurrencies, and regional trade agreements may rise the dominance once guaranteed by military power, global banks, and geopolitical clout may no longer guarantee financial stability. For many, the future feels unpredictable. In short, this isn't just about one man, one presidency, or one country. It's a test of whether decades-long global order built on alliances and trust can survive when that trust shatters. And as alliances fracture, leaders recalculate, and markets scramble, the only certainty is that nothing will remain the same. So stay alert, the next wave may hit sooner than you expect. At the end, share your thoughts about it and subscribe our channel. Thanks.